this.
Well, I guess we'll go with this.
We'll go with this.
We're gonna go ahead and
This
go with
works.
this.
This works.
You know, it's my edit this week, and I don't want to lead with that, but I hope things go smooth so I have something like actually cohesive that will work out.
Well, we'll see. Let's see. Go for it.
Yeah, this is not the traditional opening credits, but
Yeah.
We'd like to welcome everybody to the show. This is Trampled Underfoot Podcast.com. Catch us on the FM dial at
8:30. No, that would be AM.
See, you already messed up my whole thing.
Yeah, see, this is why I cannot be, this is why I never got that radio job.
So, well, we're going to try something a little bit different, and we're going to play a game of solitaire here and show it on the screen.
All right.
So we were talking about how serious things have been lately and how heavy, and we were thinking of some things that are a little bit lighthearted and whatnot. I mean, that's fair to say, yeah.
Oh, very, very much so. The last three episodes we've recorded have been pretty heavy stuff, and it's kind of time to change the mood. I mean, I'm sure everybody else is sick and tired of hearing about what's going on. They're looking for a little bit of a diversion,
That's why we're going to play Nukem 5, the board game.
That's right.
Where your conquest, where your efforts for world domination is just a button away.
That's right. Get out your 45-sided dice and let's roll.
I do have some not list type things, but kind of sort of that I want to hit you with.
Oh,
but
okay.
Before that, leading up into it,
Mm-hmm.
in the past you've mentioned, and we don't know about this, but in the past you've mentioned, and watch where I pull this line of questioning out from nothing.
Okay.
You in the past have mentioned that you play drums.
A little bit, yeah, just a little bit.
Well,
I could keep a rhythm, and I would play, with headphones on, just drum with music I listen to.
Okay, well, so my question is, because I never really got into it, and if I did, I probably forgot it. We all know I toured with the Rolling Stones and whacked Mick Jagger upside the head with my Gibson Les Paul, and then was thrown in a Tibetan jail for 5 months, and then returned to the United States penniless and, without a clue of who I was. But putting that to the side, how did you be? When was it that you started? Like, why did you start playing, and what did you give us a little bit of history if you can?
Well, first of all, I thought the non-disclosure agreement said we couldn't talk about the Rolling Stones thing, but with that being out the window, I just liked percussion from the time I was a little kid, and I wanted a set of drums forever. But I had the big problem with a father who was night shift and was a day sleeper. So drums plus day sleeper just doesn't work.
Right.
It's easier to divide by 0 than it is to try to get a set of drums when you've got a day sleeper in the family.
Right.
And even something like a practice pad would wake him up. So basically, I kind of, body tapped and, beat on boxes and stuff like that from as early as I can remember. And when I met Linda, we got married and finally settled in a place where I could have something like that. I went and I bought a set of drums and started teaching myself, quote unquote, to play. But like I said, it was all in one room of the house, a little side room off of the living room. And I would go in there and I would put on headphones and MP3 player and sit there and jam along with the music. And I toyed briefly with learning snare to play with a bagpipe band and decided that was too strictly regimented for me. It just didn't look like fun. It didn't feel like fun. And I just decided, no, I didn't want to do that.
It's not the American way, my friend. The American way is, hey, stop with the excessive drum playing. We're trying to record a song here.
That's right.
That's more the.
That's right. You know, everybody aspires to be Michael Shreve in Soul Sacrifice on Woodstock, and it's like, dude, we're just playing Happy Birthday. Knock it off. Yeah. But it's a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. But when we decided to move here in 2012, we decided that, you know, we knew selling our house down there and moving up here, we were going to be in a rental. Odds are we were going to be in an apartment, and drums take up a lot of room. I mean, a lot of room. So tried to give them to my grandson. My daughter put the nix on that. So I ended up selling the drums down in Nevada, and we moved up here. And I haven't, you know, I've still got some sticks, and I tap around on stuff, you know, practice pad and things like that. But I haven't really done anything else with it.
Well,
it's just something that I always liked. Something I always enjoyed, something I always wanted to do. So.
Well, let me ask you. So let me see what level. So can you play a beat like this?
Oh yeah.
Can you play a beat like this?
Yeah.
Can you do a drum? Can you do a drum roll like this?
Short rolls. I was beginner level. I can do short rolls. It was just getting my hands to move fast enough to where you didn't hear a break in the beat. And I was getting better, you know. There's a difference. It's a complete difference in rolling and just playing rhythm or something like that. I mean, I can keep time and I can play rhythm and what have you. Okay. But I never really went super crazy with solos or anything like that. And I think, let's see, I got the drums. I finally bought the drums in 2006. It was a little Yamaha kit. And sold them 6 years later. But yeah, I had an absolute blast with them. But I've been a body drummer all my life, you know.
It's a fun instrument.
It is. It's a lot of fun, and just finding tones in some of the weirdest things. I'm still the kind of guy that'll sit here and tap on a coffee cup with a pencil and get into a groove, you know. Or I don't do it when we're in a hangout or anything like that, but I'll sit and tap on the desk. Thank God for shock mounts, so you guys don't hear that. It's just something that I do to keep my hands busy while I'm doing absolutely nothing. And then you get the feet involved with the bass and the hi-hat and everything else. It's just a lot of fun.
So I'll ask you this question. A lot of controversy involved in this question. Mm-hmm. I mean, not for me, but out there in the world at large. Mm-hmm. What was your favorite, if you had to pick a favorite, if you have a favorite drummer, and it doesn't have to be just rock, or it could be whatever that you say, man, I just enjoy that. What do you have any?
Michael Shreve from Santana. Okay. I hesitate to say Neil Peart because everybody knows Neil Peart was an excellent drummer. The man was phenomenal. Keith Moon, probably the most ham of all the drummers. I mean, you listen to something like Won't Be Fooled Again, and it's like somebody said, "Hey Keith, which drums are you going to play?" And he says yes. Because that song, if you listen to it and pay attention to the drumming, it's 99.9% fills. And the only time he's not playing a fill is when he'll put a fill in between two fills. He may occasionally get the beat and get the groove going, but it's 99% fills. And the guy was just absolutely off the wall, just out there. But it brought the song together. It fits. He wasn't just drumming for the tune. He was just going all out and going crazy. But if he didn't do that, the song wouldn't have been the hit that it was. It wouldn't have been everything it was. you know. So it would have to be Michael Shreve, not in necessarily in this order. Keith Moon, Peart is in there. Buddy Rich, of course. I mean, God, I can just keep going down the list. There's a bunch of them.
Well, how about, so I'll ask you another related. Who do you think is, or a list of underrated drummers,
Ooh,
if any?
underrated?
Underrated, yeah.
Mick Fleetwood, excellent drummer, fabulous drummer. But I think that goes without saying. So I'm kind of, it's kind of strange to say he's underrated because I think he's right about where he should be. But you don't hear him mentioned as much as I think he should be. Nick Mason, Pink Floyd. I mean, he's right about where he should be, but I don't think he's put on the list of famous drummers.
Yeah.
You know, what can you say about John Bonham? I mean, Bonzo was just.
You think he was underrated?
When you think of sensationalist drummers, people automatically, and especially here lately, since he just recently passed away, people put Neil Peart up here on a pedestal. I think Bonham belongs up there with right alongside, if not slightly above. Now, and that's not to take away anything from Neil Peart.
I like,
but
well, go ahead.
Bonham set the bar so high that I don't know. It's hard to describe. Bonham set it's almost unreachable, is what I'm getting at.
I just want to add my 2 cents with the Bonham thing. I think that as far as Bonham is concerned, what he played and how he played, plus the recording aspect of what those engineers did on those albums, and the creativity of how they recorded them, the drums, created, in my opinion, a legend beyond, because the recordings are so well, and it's not like some of them in the early albums were recorded in a very basic way with 1 or 2 microphones, but they decided to do weird things like place microphones down hallways and let the drums that go out on the official song be an echoed, blown out, sort of compressed, like what's that song, When the Levee Breaks and stuff?
Levee Breaks, yeah.
Where it's got this just exaggerated
resonance, yeah.
It's such a fun thing that they did with his drums that I think that plays into his category as well, but that's not taking away that he was kicked butt.
A lot of it does, and part of what makes me want to put him at a higher level is he could back it up live, where you're not getting those effects that the engineers and the producers are putting on. So yeah, a lot of it was like When the Levee Breaks. And that's an excellent example because they did distance the microphones back, but it didn't take away from his performance in it. And when you get something like, oh gosh, I'm struggling with the name. It's not Black Dog. It's
yeah, that was from
God, I can't. Somebody in the chat will pop it up with you.
Moby Dick.
When you get something like Moby Dick and you watch him in some of their live performances,
the way you did the it's almost like an what was that guy from Channel 2, Lawrence Welk,
and the one and the two.
It almost sounded like you were da 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 da. That was like a little timpani. Go ahead.
Yeah, but when you listen to the studio cut of like Moby Dick and then you watch some of the live footage, I mean, yeah, the engineers they played a little bit with the sound to get a good different. They were going for that specific sound on the album, but when you can back it up live, that's what sets you above the rest. And it's the same with Michael Shreve. I mean, my exposure to Michael Shreve of Santana was Woodstock. There wasn't a whole heck of a lot he could do to enhance that sound, and just pure talent was on display when he was playing that solo, especially in Soul Sacrifice.
It's funny, that song
Mm-hmm.
and that live recording of that song, for some reason,
Mm-hmm.
was just brilliance. And I don't think you could, like you were saying, I don't think you could beat even the guitar. There's like this compressed saturation coming through in that recording. It's like, when he starts with the guitar, it's just the whole thing was such freaking fantastic. I don't know how they did it, and I bet you it was just randomly a mistake of just that they recorded it that way, but it came out brilliant.
It was talent. It was talent on everybody's part. I mean, the players, the musicians, the folks who set up the equipment, the folks who recorded the performances. It was talent on all their parts because they didn't have electronic, there was no auto tune. So you had everybody playing at their peak. Everybody from the guy who ran the cables to make sure everything was being recorded to the musicians up on stage. Everybody just nailed it. And it was just pure talent that drove the entire show, let alone that performance. And, that really turned me. I mean, I probably wore out that side of the whole Woodstock album, because that is still to this day. And Woodstock was 50 years ago, coming up on 51 years ago this August. That's still to this day my absolute favorite live performance by any band, by any performer, is Soul Sacrifice on Woodstock. It's that good.
Well, how about so like, I don't know, what do you think about bands like, so look, that I like Jimi Hendrix, the Jimi Hendrix Experience and stuff, and especially when you put on headphones, the experience, no pun intended, is great because of the panning effects that they use and the decision making that when they record the album, they pan things left and right like a guitar extreme. Well, if you notice on those 1960s records, some things were recorded in like such a pristine way. Even though it was back then, they did such a great job of, I guess you'd call it, high fidelity. And I wouldn't necessarily call, and I hate to say this, the experience is different with the Jimi Hendrix Experience. But if you listen to the drums in particular, it's not a full-bodied drum with necessarily a full-bodied drum. It's leans slightly towards a tinny equalization and whatnot, and not tinny like insane tinny, but tinny enough where at least I recognize that it doesn't have, like, funny enough, like Cream. You hear their albums, it's not quite, it's got more girth to it. Have you noticed that in recordings yourself?
Yes. And I don't know if it was the equipment that they were using or a certain sound they were going for or a style, but it's almost like they took the master track and just turned up the treble and turned down the bass. There was a space of time where they did that. A lot of Clapton's older recordings sound just like it was recorded on somebody's cassette deck with the treble turned up. It doesn't sound what I would call professionally recorded. And I don't know if they were trying to make up for the fact that this was all recorded on magnetic tape, so boost the treble a little bit, because if they don't, it's going to sound muddy. I'm no recording engineer at all. Audio is not my forte. So
I think it did have to do with engineering decisions throughout the course and mixing decisions throughout the course of a album, the editing part of it, let's say. I think it had to do with those decisions, because regardless of what you would say, or not you, but people generally, like, I think that an underrated drummer would be Ringo Starr. But, I don't know if you agree with that or not, but just to say my last bit about this is that, but I think he's underrated, especially for drummers. Like, oh, that's Ringo Starr. Like, you hear a lot of that. especially the further away you get from the 60s and drummers of like the 80s and friends of mine, they're like, well, that's great, because they're more into like all that stuff. But there's also other things that you can call musically beautiful that doesn't mean shredding your guitar, like full on constant, like there's other things that make music. So it depends on your standards and what you like. But Ringo's drums throughout the Beatles, particularly when they enter Rubber Soul and beyond, with the decision making of the mixing, and that's when they switched engineers. The early stuff was kick butt too, but as they enter that psychedelia sort of phase, the drums became rich. And I mean, if you put headphones on, particularly going all the way to the last ending era of Abbey Road, it's like really in your face, heavy duty, nice.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to use Come Together from Abbey Road as an example of that. Ringo had a talent for, and if you listen to even back in some of their older recordings, you can see it starting to, it kind of evolves. Ringo had a talent for, yes, he played for the song, which is great. That's what a drummer should do.
Yeah.
But he also had a way of using the drum to add as a melodic instrument. It didn't just keep the groove. If you listen to Come Together, that opening, you can't get away from the drum finishing up that opening line. It's part of the melody. It's not just a rhythm instrument anymore. And he was very, very good at that. Now, I don't think he invented it. I don't know that he invented it, but he got very good at it. And in that regard, I will say, yes, he was an underrated drummer. There's been a lot of people who have said, well, you could have put anybody up there to play what Ringo played. And I disagree with you as well. He knew his place. He understood his place. He was happy in his place. And he was he was a very important member of one of the biggest bands in history. And they never once decided that they were going to look for somebody that they thought was better. Because believe me, if they didn't think Ringo, we're talking about the Beatles, if they didn't think that Ringo was worthy of staying with them, he'd have been gone.
Yeah.
They could.
He was an excellent drummer.
Yeah.
He actually did creative things on the drum. See, because it depends, because it's all the glitter and stuff. Like people nowadays, they're thinking in terms of the Neil Pearts and they're thinking of the drum roll continuums and which is fine. I like it too, to be honest with you. But what he did was emphasize things while the band was playing their awesomeness, and it was just a lot of rock and roll juice,
Yeah. Like I said, and his ability to recognize when to bring it up and make the drums a part of the melody and then lay back and stay in the groove. So he understood his place. He knew when to kind of lean forward and when to kind of pull back. And there's something else to be said for him. If you stop and think about it, the Beatles were the first band to feature the drummer. Usually the drummer was down on the stage behind everybody else and off to one side. If you go back and you look at any of the big band swing music, rock and roll, I mean, up to, Buddy Holly and them, the drummer was kind of off to the side. He's back in the background. He's not a musician. The Beatles literally put Ringo up on a pedestal right in the center and made him a part of the band. He was a featured musician. The same as Paul on the bass, George and John on guitars.
Yeah.
So they brought the drums into the limelight from being an also-ran. It's not like the drummer was like the dude with the tambourine or the shaker. He's now a part of the band and he's featured up here out front.
Yeah, which was a big sort of a change for rock and roll. I mean, Buddy Rich was a player, that was the leader of the band, let's say. But it's kind of a weird thing, where and I like drummers, I like bands with. Personally, I like the Eagles, where they all take turns singing.
Yeah,
I like that concept of mixing things up in a band. A lot of people don't like they want their standardized. This is the singer. This is the. I personally like the mix up. It's little stories being told through music that each are unique, and it's a fun thing. So drummers, just the same. I mean, without any one of them involved, you wouldn't have a band, or at least not a full one.
Well, each piece is equally important, because without that piece, you don't have a band. Now, that's arguable, because there are people who say, well, you can program a drum machine. Okay, fine. But you can also program a keyboard to play that guitar's part. You can put all of this into a computer and generate music. There's people that do it every day. So the drummer, the bassist, the guitars, the keyboards, and the vocalists are all equally important. At least that's just my opinion.
Well, I agree with you.
And that's one reason why I'm not I'm not much for drum machines at all, because, that's somebody out of work. Then again, that's less equipment you got to haul around. So, if you're one guy gigging with the guitar, running around, then I can understand it. You're going to have your looping pedal, and you're going to have your drum machine and stuff like that. But, well, you can't imagine ZZ Top without Frank Beard. And Frank Beard, I think, is a underrated drummer as well.
Okay. Well, I want to, sort of switch gears, but within the same world that we're and staying sort of circling the era of the 60s.
Okay.
And I'll share this with you, and something about this. I don't know whether or not you went and saw the mini documentary that I'd sent you, but I want to sort of like unpack this.
Okay.
Did you see it?
I watched part of it, but it's a long documentary.
Okay. Well, so in the 50s, we know that there was rock and roll going on with, the likes of Chuck Berry, I don't know, the Big
Elvis.
Bopper and Elvis and all of them, right? Little Richard and the list goes on with all these guys. But as the 50s wore through into the 60s, you had this transition period, and it's not all level, right? It varies, but it started to change into a different sound. A mixture of different things started to be incorporated. But and then we get the psychedelia that we all are aware of as it goes through the 60s. But there was a contingency of people left over, kids that finally became grown-ups or young adults from the 50s at that time, that listened to the whatever the Little Richards and what was this guy, Rock Around the Clock, what was his name?
Oh, Bill Haley and the Comets.
And Bill Haley and all these things that were like that sort of mean cat rock and roll dance floor, well, so there was this one guy that was born in England, and there's a documentary about it, and I think it's super interesting. His name was Vince Taylor. Okay. Now, I don't know whether or not that was his stage name or not, but here's the story. This guy moved to America. He's a British guy, but he moved to America during that time, and then he caught whiff of the 50s rock and roll, and he went back to England, moved back, and he became a musician, and he was actually married into the family of Hanna-Barbera, incidentally, which makes things even kind of how things work. It's kind of interesting. And so the guy became this rock and roller a la Elvis Presley, but I guess I'll say meaner or less refined, less teddy bear and more brass knuckle, let's say. And it was an interesting documentary because he wasn't particularly, as they say in the documentary, and you could argue the point, that great of a singer. Fair enough for rock and roll. But what was cool about it was that the guy has a lot of video footage from the era and doing some crazy gyrating a la Elvis Presley, but in a more spastic, exaggerated, sort of, I don't know, man. It's just an extra. So, but the cool. So did you see up to that point or no?
Yeah, I only got about maybe 10 minutes into it, and then something pulled me off, and I never got back to it. So,
okay, so I'll just, the guy has this career, but he's a drinker, he's a scrapper, and this guy Vince Taylor ends up in a situation with his band somewhere in Europe where they're kind of like hungry. They need their money, and you get paid for doing gigs. And we're talking the 1960s, and he's the boss of the band. And they're like, boss, I mean, we played those 2 gigs in London and we never got paid for them. So the guy, they motivate him, let's say, to go get the money. And so he takes off to go get the money. And he doesn't show up for another 2 weeks. And these guys are stuck in a hotel room that they can't even pay for, making up excuses as they go, using their credit of being musicians to get them as far as they can, living off of scraps and dimes and whatnot. And so then Vince Taylor shows up again. They open up the door, and in front of them is this guy dressed in a gown, such as, I don't know, the trippy San Francisco movement of the 60s. And they tell him, well, Vince, where have you been? And he says, oh, Vince, I am not Vince. I am Jesus Christ. And they're like, what the hell? And he was dead serious, the guy was. And so basically he didn't bring the money. But when he went to London, the roaring, 60s London, he sure did drop a lot of acid for 2 weeks. He lost his mind, man. And the documentary goes into this craziness where he becomes this sort of like psychedelic case, such as the guy from Pink, what was this guy's name? From Pink Floyd, Sid Barrett. Yeah, dude. And so I thought it was such a great rock and roll documentary. And I like the fact that, there's still more out there to be explored about the 60s rock that I personally was not aware of. So it's a great story. Sad for him, though.
Yeah.
But
history is written by the people who survived it. We will never hear from any member of the 27 Club what was going on behind the scenes because they can't tell the story. All we know about what happened with Janice or Jimmy is from the point of view of the people around them. And everybody carries their own little biases, whether they be environmental or, whatever. So I think that you will find more stories out there like Sid Barrett and Vince Taylor than people are willing to admit. And, whether they be people who made it, who were on the cusp of making it to the big time, or people who never even got to that level. The folks who never made it beyond gigging 1 or 2 clubs and then descended into madness that way. Or people who never even picked up an instrument and descended into madness that way. And so I think there are more stories out there to be discovered. And I don't know. I keep saying nothing would surprise me anymore. I don't know how true that is, but when it comes to musicians in the 60s, I don't think anything would surprise me anymore, to be honest with you, because it was a time, it was a wild time. It was a strange time to be alive. I was young. I was a kid. I was born in 61. So all this was happening around me. I didn't really understand it. I didn't know what it all meant. All I knew was that this wasn't what I was seeing on television. Real life wasn't being reflected in what I was watching on TV. when you see a band playing on a U-Haul trailer in the middle of a park, you don't see that on Leave It to Beaver. You don't see that on Father Knows Best. But when you see 200, 300, 400 hippies standing around a U-Haul trailer in Golden Gate Park and motorcycles as far as the eye can see, that's happening in real life. You can't deny it. You're watching it. You're standing there watching it. And people doing, I hesitate to even call it dancing, but everybody out there just moving with it. And that they weren't on, people on Pure Air just don't act that way. So that there were substances going around.
Well, these kids from the 60s that were 18 years old in 1966, 7, 8, and 9.
Yeah.
That caught that. These kids were born, in the 40s?
Late 40s and early 50s, yeah.
Right. And they grew up in a world, they were born into a world with World War II had just happened or was happening, and so the aftermath of that and people getting back to work and America in the 50s, and you would think that they wouldn't rebel, that there was no need for rebellion against the system, let's say, but they ended up being the most rebellious generation in many ways, more so than the 80s, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was absolute, complete, and total rebellion. The automatic gainsay of anything anybody in authority or even perceived to be an authority said. I don't want to go to college. Tune in, drop out. Tune in, turn on, drop out. I don't want to go to college. I don't want to be a businessman. I don't want to be a part of the system. I don't want to be a part of the establishment. I'm in the counterculture. That was the big phrase, the counterculture. So, I want to be with the hippies, et cetera, et cetera. But you got to figure, if you were 19 in 1967, you were born in 1947, 48, something like that. So World War II was over with. You didn't experience any of that. The closest thing you saw was Korea. And then we get into Vietnam, where it's becoming a little bit closer to home because now it's your turn to go. And it's like, I don't want to go. This war is unnecessary. And that started a lot of it. But that doesn't explain most of it.
It doesn't.
It was complete and total rebellion against everything establishment.
Yeah, it doesn't explain a lot of things. I'm sure there's books and, documentaries written about the subject. And I'm sure that with a, Google search, one could, suss out some information on that line. But it is a situation where just out the gates, if you just thought about it, like I just asked you, you can't really place her, because I get war is a motivator for people to say, hey, wait a second, but it's not, enough unless other circumstances, I don't know.
I hate to resort to our more base urges, but it started on campuses. I don't think anybody can pinpoint this is what happened. This is why it happened. But I think a good percentage of it was guys trying to be with girls. And if the girls are over here doing this, the guys are going to follow. And if the girls think this is cool, the guy's got to be hip if he wants even a little bit of a chance with a girl. So I've got to think like that. And if she wants to grow her hair long and wear a peasant blouse, he's not going to grow his hair long. Well, he might grow his hair long, but he's not going to wear a peasant blouse. He'll do the next best thing. Guys will do some crazy things to be with girls. Exactly.
It's the peacock with the feather. Hey, look,
exactly.
Hey, look at my feathers. I
want to prove that I'm hip. I want to prove that I'm with this generation. So if that means not keeping the crew cut and letting my hair grow and maybe growing out a beard and a mustache, even though societal convention says no, clean cut and, go to college and get a job in the business world. Well, these girls are over here, to hell with your business world. I want to be over here. So I think there's a lot of that drove it, especially when you got to remember it was the start of the women's liberation movement and literal bra burnings and things like that. Women are going, no, I want to be wild and free and not shackled by your conventional dress. And what guy is going to run away from that?
Yeah,
Not many.
What 18-year-old kid in 1969 or whatever is going to say, me from the what would that club be called, from withholding from sex and religious tolerance and sexual and cutting off sexual promiscuity. I would not, no kid would say that. They'd say, lady, I support you all the way. I mean, this is true.
Exactly. And when the women start marching down the street screaming free love, the guys are right behind them going, what they said. Yeah. You know it. I mean, and I was, like I said, I was pretty young. In 67, I was 6 years old. So I saw it happening. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't care what it meant. I was too worried about getting a new bicycle. That's all I wanted. I'm 6. So, but going back and looking at stuff, I'm going, yeah, that sounds about right. When the women are burning their bra and screaming free love, what guy is going to say, nope? I mean, the guys are going to be right around them going, yeah, we support you. So,
my father, I just did the calculation because I saw you just mentioned your age, and Linda's mentioning hers as well as Russ. They're mentioning. So I wasn't born then. So I can say that my old man was, let's say in 1969, was 27 years old. So he was a generation a little bit already. So the 60s happened and he wasn't down with the plan. He was on another mission. So he was a little bit older than the 60s people or kids, that were coming into their own at that age. But my mom was born in 51. So, she was kind of right there on the cuffs of full on, hippies and this and that. Although I wouldn't say that they liked the music, her and her sister, but I wouldn't say that they were like, screw it, man, like, party forever. It's not like I don't know why I sounded like a Valley girl just there, but like totally
your Spicoli impression isn't working, dude. Well, yeah, my dad was 25, but he was also married and had 2 kids and had to try to feed them. So, and let's just be honest, my mother was so much of a prude. If he even thought about growing his hair to where it covered his ears, he'd have been divorced, So, I mean, I have photos of the era, and he kept a crew cut until, well, his hair started to grow a little bit in like 69, 70. And by about the mid 70s, it was down over his ears, but it didn't completely cover them. He kept the shorter hairstyle mainly to please my mother. And he was that way until the day he passed. So, but it was just a different generation and a different time. But he could have been, I mean, my parents could have very easily have been right involved in all that. They were a little bit older than the teenagers who were out rioting in the streets in front of our house, but only by about 5 or 6 years. So not that much older.
No. So. No, you're right. I mean, well, it's a funny thing because I guess it's on a, person to person basis and depending on their needs and circumstances and economy and whatever the heck, right?
Right. Yeah, sure. It's on everything's relative, and although you had a huge migration of young folks to San Francisco, to the Haight-Ashbury district, where a lot of this, it was the epicenter of the hippie movement. Relatively speaking, they were a very small percentage of the population. So it wasn't a majority, but it was enough to be noticed. And at the time, I can still remember they were being ridiculed. Hippies were seen as dirty people who just didn't bathe and this, that, and the other. I can remember the jokes about them. What weighs 2,000 pounds and stinks? A hippopotamus, that kind of thing.
I always mention this, and I'll mention it again. And I'm not sure that my dad would necessarily either way, but it goes to just a personal conversation. But I think one time I asked him about the hippies and stuff because he was of that whole era and prior. And there was a lot. And he, as a matter of fact, just in passing, he didn't give it any importance. When I asked him, he didn't give it any value or substance to the whole category of hippie. He told me just, oh yeah, those were dirty people sitting out on the lawn over there at Key Biscayne.
Yeah.
That's all. That was his point of reference. Oh yeah, those were, and that's it. And he kept going. He kept.
Well,
he didn't even.
Yeah, they weren't taken seriously until
all the musical aspect, none of it. He's like, yeah, those were a bunch of dirty, not even down with the plan.
Right. They were completely and totally disregarded until Woodstock. When Woodstock, when that event happened, and they saw 400,000 people gathered for 3 days of music. Then people decided, wait a minute, these folks are going to be getting older and they're going to be the ones in charge down the road. They are a force to be reckoned with. And they were given a lot more credibility, Yeah. Maybe what they were saying did have some merit, not necessarily as far as political decision were concerned, but some of the things that they were talking about as major issues, maybe they do need to be looked at, because pretty soon they're going to be the ones making the rules while we're in nursing homes or we're retired or whatever. So maybe we do need to shut up and pay attention,
Yeah. I don't know why, but I just thought of, and I'll tell you out loud because screw it. It might just go, but I can see going in the future, a bunch of us, those that are still around, sitting in those very same nursing homes, whatever years in the future, and all these kids now as the attendants and whatnot, and society controls and everything, like every service, ma'am, could you please help me? And just everybody crying, just tears and sadness. And I'm sorry, that wasn't a punchline joke. It was just when you were talking about that,
the mental image.
That was the mental of just people walking down hallways, and we're just sitting there looking at them, and they're walking by, and they're just but whatever.
Well, you got to figure it won't be the teenagers of today. It'll be the teenagers coming up. The kids that are being born today will be the ones taking care of us. So,
I'll leave this for future generations. If this is around in that sort of time, I'll just say it is a human thing for us to, every generation kind of holds their generation. I mean, you have to be very esoterically open, to the universe to see everything as a continuum without your era affecting you. But we're all a product of this is my belief. I may be totally wrong, but product of the age we come from, and we hold it in some sort of esteem, some sort of regard. And so there's a little bias involved in things when you talk, personal opinion or favoritism involved. When I talk about the 80s, to me was a special time because of everything.
Well, it was your time, so yeah,
Right, exactly. So I'm just saying that it's not like this is for future generations, say 500 years from now in the planet Nepcar.
Yeah.
Planet.
Well, my message for future generations is just prop me up and give me ice cream, and I'm a happy guy. Don't put on the TV. Just, put on some Zeppelin or some Floyd and give me ice cream, and I'm a happy guy. You don't have to talk to me. You don't have to like me. You don't even have to acknowledge me. Give me ice cream, put on some Floyd, and go away.
Wait a second. Are you talking about the future?
Yes.
Wait a second. Let's just reflect on that for half a second. Let's just. Are you sure that, let's say at 80, whatever, breaching the gates of 90 or whatever thereabouts, you're trying to tell me that you're going to be sitting in that rocking chair, and the bingo table is like all the cards are flipped over, and like there's a lady just sitting there waiting for like 5 o'clock, and you're sitting there and you're going to be listening to Black Dog.
Yeah. Why not? I'll be air drumming to Moby Dick.
Okay.
Call back.
Right, but don't underestimate. See, I'm very surprised at you, and that very might well be what you're saying, but it could also very well be like at that point you're like, you know what, just like put some like soft piano music and let's just glide, let's just enjoy it, because I think we mature into, like, I like Metallica,
Okay.
and like today I was listening to like Motley Crue and this and that. But it's not with the same passion as when it was that time. It's more like, man, I remember that's cool and stuff. Oh, okay, that's enough of that.
Well, that leads us to another interesting question here. In that, pick your. I mean, we've already each listed our top 5 favorite albums. Do you ever get to a point to where you're tired of them and don't want to hear them anymore?
It's a funny thing, but I have all my music on an iPod, and I don't have, and the little headphone jack is screwed, so I can't lay. My favorite way to consume music is to lay down on the bed and listen to music through my headphones and let the sounds flow from one ear to the other and just enjoy that. It's just, to me, orgasmic. Since the head jack ain't working, I can't listen to music in my favorite way. So I haven't listened to my catalog of music in like over a year and then some, the way I like to enjoy it. So I'm ready for all the music that I've like, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm ready to listen to all good stuff that I used to like all over again. And I need to fix that.
So you can't get online and load up a playlist of, say, Dark Side of the Moon and put that on and lay back and listen to that on headphones?
No, because I have it here in this room, not in my bedroom.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. All right. Gotcha. Okay.
And, you know what I'm saying? So, and honestly, I enjoyed taking that little iPod and going, with the wheel. It was like the second generation or whatever.
Okay.
And you could select like an album, and then it'll play the next album. So like, let's say you did the Beatles as an example or whatever. It could be anything. You'd listen to the whole album and you'd fall asleep. And then when you woke up again, you're like in album number 3 and you're like, oh man. And it's just such a great.
Okay. So what we got to do is we got to get you a new headset. And that's all there is to it. So we're looking for headphones for an iPod, y'all. The old second generation.
Well, it's like the little mechanism. Bust it open. And I know there's a part that can be switched out. I mean, the whole thing. So that I need to find, and that will be, I mean, I got to look on Amazon because I'm sure that I hope they sell it.
I'm sure you can find it. Take it to an Apple store. They might have one in the back. They'll knock the dust off and give you to get it out of their shop.
I hate to bring up current events right about now, but wait till late summer.
Okay, so you haven't missed it for a year. Make a date for it in June. So
it is true though, Mark. Though that the way to I enjoy music. I swear to you, it's those headphones letting.
I'm with you.
And I don't like to listen to it blown out. I'd like to listen to it enough where everything is audible and I can enjoy the ride.
Right. Oh, I'm with you.
Oh man,
I'm with you. And that's exactly what I meant when I asked that question, because I can put on like Dark Side of the Moon. I can put it up here on my computer and sit back in this chair right here with my headset on, and I can just listen to the entire thing and just enjoy the heck out of it. So my answer to my own question is no. I can't get tired of those albums. They're my favorites for a reason. So when you say I picture myself in a nursing home at age 90, yeah, it's going to be a case of my roommate going, "Nurse, he's out of bed again," because he's grabbed hold of the headphones and he's taken them back over, you know.
Okay, I mean, listen, I'm just trying to say that, don't underestimate the power of slow dancing polka music.
Oh. Look, you're talking to a guy who is married to a bagpiper. There is music happening in all directions here. Everything from genuine, by God, Gregorian chant to ZZ Top, with everything in between. We've got a little bit of Copeland. We've got Debussy. We have Ludwig van. We have all kinds of stuff here. We have the Chieftains. We have the Wicked Tinkers. And people are going, who are these people you're talking about? Excellent musicians, just of various different genres. And will play as the mood strikes, man.
I'll just, I mean, totally, right? And I'll just to emphasize kind of a weird thing within the conversation is that talking about age and music and would you listen to this and that. Mm-hmm. My grandparents, there's a style of back in the 80s, and I have to draw the line at the 80s because my grandfather passed away right in 91, thereabouts. But before that, there was a good stretch where, and after lunch, they'd turn on the radio, and there's this Cuban country backwoods swamp frickin' like just the oldest, weirdest, and it's called Punto Guajiro. Punto Guajiro.
Okay.
And it is, I hated it. It's people from the country and mountainsides and whatnot in Cuba, and they would sit with their accompanying guitars, and you'd have a worker of the land. He'd imagine like the sugar cane and stuff, and he'd walk up and he'd take off his hat, and they'd be playing there, and then he'd start and it was just horrible. It was just, and they would rock it, and they were old and they were rocking this insanity, and a lot of people do like it and whatever, and so they were that age. So yes,
but it was the music they grew up with. It was the music they knew. Heck, for all you know, one of them may have been one of the singers on that, on some of that stuff. And that's, to me, that kind of music is more more interesting than you would. That kind of music is more interesting than you would think. And that's one reason why I brought up the band, the Wicked Tinkers. It's a set of bagpipes, a bass drum, a snare drum, and a didgeridoo. 4 instruments that may or may not go together. A didgeridoo with pipes? Yes, but it's not your dad's bagpipes. These guys play fast. They play loud. They play tribal. And they get going. I mean, the piper is a world-class piper who's got a master's certificate from the College of Piping, one of the few Americans to have one. And he's on YouTube. He's all over YouTube. If you look on YouTube for a video called Piper Gone Wild, that's him. His name is Aaron Shaw. He is one of the best of the best. And when the Tinkers play, when the Wicked Tinkers play, people will come from out of the woodwork who've never heard anything like that before and just absolutely love it. And you cannot keep your seat. It's and that's their style. It's tribal. They try to recreate the feel of the clan in the glen around the bonfire, and it's a big celebration. It's fast, it's foot stomping, and it's designed to get you up and moving, and they do, and
Well,
it's wild stuff.
well, sort of staying within that because it just came. I do not know if you've ever seen this movie.
Mhm.
It's called. Oh crap! Do you hate when that happens? I've got it in the.
Never seen it.
You haven't seen that one, have you?
No. Oh crap! Hate when that happens. No, never seen it.
Yeah, you guys write in and let us know if you've ever seen that. It's a movie with Tom Hanks, and they're like Irish people from America, but they keep the Irish tradition, and there's a name to it which I can't quite. Can you guys?
It's a Tom Hanks movie.
It's a Tom Hanks movie. Road to Perdition.
No, I haven't. I've not seen that.
Okay, Road to Perdition is a great movie that I recommend for folks if you have my temperament and my likes and whatnot. By the way, press like down there when you get a chance, since I said likes. Road to Perdition, and just as soon as I say that, I see a darn number drop on the thing. What is it with people? It's I don't care. What is it? What is it with this world? It's like you can't, suggest. It's just a suggestion. You don't have. You're not being at gunpoint. It's just it's your choice. If you want to press the like button, it's appreciated. If you don't, it's not a big off of ours. Well, Road to Perdition is a great movie, dude. And it's the life of a gangster, and they're all in an Irish type community. They're American fully, but they're Irish. They have the Irish,
right.
So they're kind of like
Irish mafia type, like.
Right. Well, I don't want to give it away if you do see it, but I'll just lead up to he's got two sons. Tom Hanks is a gangster of gangsters, and he owes his whole life to this one guy that owns the whole town. The the movie quality and set design is so well done and so dark and brooding, and just it's really good. And well, his son sees his dad commit he did not know prior and then he sees his dad commit a certain act, and the movie unravels from that point. Fantastic movie. It's a really good movie.
Okay, I'm gonna have to. I'll put it on the list right behind the Truman Show.
Yeah, I mean,
no, I'll check it out. I have heard of it, but I've not watched it.
Yeah,
I'll check it out.
Steve always likes that. We got Harneal meat. I don't know what Steve. And by the way, you're just giving yourself bad because I was about to give you the whole commercial input part. What kind of comment? So he recommends that movie to himself. What are you talking about? What do you mean? To myself, I'm trying to say that I like it, and that maybe you guys like it.
Yeah. Well, all I know is we're going to have to put links now to a few things. We're going to have to find that song that you don't like, that your grandparents used to play.
I linked it up there somewhere, but I will put it in.
We're going to have to put it on our Facebook page. Yeah. I'm going to have to find Piper Goes Wild and put it on our Facebook page.
Yeah.
And then we're going to have to find, there was something else that we need to find up there. I'll look for, just in case somebody has come out of the cave or they're listening to this 50 years in the future and don't know what we're talking about, over on this thing called Facebook, I'll put a link to Soul Sacrifice by Santana from Woodstock. I'll put a link to that if I can find the video over on our Facebook page. And our Facebook page, by the way, is the Trampled Underfoot Podcast. Head over to Facebook and look for Trampled Underfoot Podcast. Or if you're checking us out here right now on YouTube, look down in the description and there's a link to our Facebook page. Give us a thumbs up, give us a like, check out the links we throw up whenever we mention something off the wall like we're doing right now. We'll link it over there so you can check it out and see what we're talking about.
We're also over on Trampled Underfoot trampeldunderfootpodcast.com, and it's sponsored by Harneal Media. That's harnealmedia.com, and they provide website services as well as if you just want to shop, well, you can get that too, and it's the lowest prices that you could find. Personalized service. That's harnealmedia.com. And he's also the guy that makes the wisecracks down on the comments section. But there's also another site. I don't know that we should mention the survival site.
Yeah, let's go ahead and mention it too.
Oh, because he can link it.
Yeah, Steve can link it. He's linking stuff right now. So we'll also mention surviving emergencies. This is not one of those sites run by Steve Nealon over at Harneal Media. This is kind of a list of do's and don'ts and kind of a list of tips and tricks to kind of help you store away the things that you need to store away and put things aside for the rainy day. Because as we're seeing here over the course of the last few months, rain does come, and sometimes it's harder than others.
Hard rain's going to fall.
That's right. So survivingemergencies.com. It's a good place to go over there. Check it out. There's some tips and tricks, how to assemble a first aid kit, how to store food properly, etc., etc. That'll help you through tough times. And as we've seen here recently, that could come at any time. So
getting back to the actual website, I just wanted to mention it's trampeldunderfootpodcast.com, and on there you can catch all our previous episodes, and they're actually quite entertaining. Mark and I go back and forth on different subjects from history and music, like we've done today. Recently we've even touched on the scary scenario that we're witnessing.
Mm-hmm.
But we touch on a lot of different I guess you'd say historical and current event type conversations that are fun. So you could check out our past episodes on the Wayback Machine button. And we also, what else do we have? We have other things, don't we?
Oh yeah, we have a contact us page on the trampeldunderfootpodcast.com. You can send us a message. We will read it. We read everything that comes in. And if you have a show suggestion, you want us to talk about something, you want us to stop talking about something, let us know what you're thinking. We want you. We want your input. We want your suggestions, your comments, your questions, demands for payment. Send them on over to us. We also have a YouTube channel, as those of you over here in the live chat already can see. We record these episodes on Tuesday evenings at 9:30 Eastern Time, 6:30 Pacific Time, right here in front of a live captive, we should say, YouTube audience. Come on over here and hoot and holler with us in the chat. We get some good back and forths going over there in the chat, and you never know who's going to drop in and say hello.
That's right.
So
I wanted to try this little segment, I guess, on our way racing towards the end here. We can usually, for the listeners, we usually put little name tags on the bottom, because we do this live on YouTube every Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, as well as 6:30 West Coast time, and we usually put little names down on the corners and stuff. And my question to Mark is, and to the rest of you is, what am I referring to if 6 was 9?
What do you mean? What are you referring to? That's Jimi Hendrix.
Okay, well, good. See, I like how you I like how you did that slowly and under the radar there.
Okay. Well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was okay. You said you were going to throw some stuff at me from lyrics and see if I could pick out the song, and I didn't realize that was one of them.
Well, I'm just massaging into the next part, but
okay.
How about these are transitions? How about what album was that on? Can you hit me with that?
Was that?
See, now we're getting a little bit. See, now.
Okay. Was that Axis Bold as Love?
You know what? It was.
Okay.
And it's a funny thing about that, because that whole album was recorded. I don't know when you listen to it, and you guys can tell me what you think.
It's been a while.
Well, you know, if you recall, I mean, I can recall because it was shocking, or it stood out. The whole album is recorded in a very, I guess you'd call, dry chorus like, affected flanger like, and just there was a certain vibe to it and tonal consistency, except for If Six Was Nine.
Mm-hmm.
That song on that album stands out because there's a particular type of dirt to the audio, which is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Because although I mentioned not good quality versus good quality and this and that previously,
Mm-hmm.
when we were talking about the different bands and drumming recordings
Right.
and whatnot, there is something to be said about the grungy, the dirty sound, you know, of music of years gone by.
Mm-hmm.
There's a certain quality that's captured with all that noise and staticky, you know, randomness in it
Mm-hmm.
that's good too. And this is one of those songs that has that.
Well,
If all.
they tried to do everything they could to eliminate that with filtering and what have you, but there was still a lot of it that made it through to the final take. But this was also the era of experimentation. They were, because you got to remember, at the time they were making the transition from mono to stereo, and everything was high fidelity, and that's where you got the big banners across the top of the albums, high fidelity, meaning a truer sound than what was available before. Because what was available before was a tinny little, you went from 78, which actually had better quality than a 45 or 33 RPM, but it was real tinny. There wasn't a lot of bass to it.
Yeah.
Because they were mainly recording brass instruments. So as the technology improved and things started getting warmer, the electric guitar came along where it could be heard over louder instruments, and horns started kind of going away. They weren't in style anymore, with Chuck Berry coming along, and Les Paul and Mary Ford, and all of the guitars started becoming in the forefront, and the technology developed for that. Then they started experimenting with stereo. And that's what you were talking about earlier with the panning. You have all the drums off to one side, and then maybe you have a lead guitar over here and a rhythm guitar over on this side. But they also went back and forth. I mean, if you've ever listened to the Guess Who song, Hand Me Down World, that's probably the best example of that, where you have a rhythm guitar playing off on your on the left side of the mix, the lead guitar, a high lead guitar playing on the right side of the mix, and they start crossing over. Pretty soon they're up right in the center of your head, and then they change places. And by the time that solo's over with, your rhythm's on the right side of the mix and your lead's on the left side. They did a lot of experimenting with that. They did a lot of experimentation with backmasking. They did sped up instruments. I mean, Les Paul was playing around with speeds. Les Paul and Mary Ford did a song called Sitting on Top of the World, where Les Paul played the guitar for the tune, and then in post-production they would speed it up to 4, 8, sometimes 12 times normal speed, to where it sounded like a hyped up mandolin. And it just, all of that experimentation came through. And I think Axis was one of those albums where, yeah, If Six Was Nine was, it was a different vibe, it was a different feel, but it was all still a big part of that experimentation, because even they didn't know what they were doing. All they knew was they liked it. And Hendrix was good at trying to figure out a feel. He wanted you to feel something with his music as well as what he was feeling. But the only way he could do that was through the experimentation and the engineering. So I don't know. That was a long way to go to get to that. But
no, good. Yeah.
But yeah, it was a time of everybody experimenting, and that was one of the results.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let's I'm gonna throw just a few at you,
Okay.
and everybody can play along. These are song lyrics, and see if you could figure out the song or artist or anything of it. And if you do, you do, and that's thumbs up and awesome. And if you don't, well, that's okay, because it's not like we're putting our lives on the line here.
Well,
So
you
let's
aren't.
emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds.
Oh God, was that Journey to the Center of Your Mind by the Amboy Dukes?
Nope.
Emancipation.
Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. Well, that's not going to be good, because that's not even in the
That didn't help me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was no help at all.
If I do this,
No, that's a
emancipate yourself from mental slavery. If I do that, that's going to even make it worse. Or how about this? Emancipate yourself from mental slavery.
You're going back to the Cuban music, aren't you?
That would be emancipate. Dun, 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 dun. All that screwed up your whole thing, because it.
Yeah, I have no clue what that came from.
No,
Normally, I used to think I was good at this.
No, but everything that I just did tainted forever. That because it's impossible for you to, because now you have all these pictures in your head.
Yeah.
So emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind. Bob Marley.
Okay, yeah. See, I wasn't a big, huge Marley fan.
Okay, well, I mean, and nobody down there in the thing. See, Jim Dockrell said Peter Tosh, but close, but no cigarettes. So let's see here. Okay, here we go. We all shine on like the moon and the stars of the sun.
Okay, that's yeah. You gave away the instant karma, John Lennon.
Yep. Let's see. Let's see what we got going here. We'll do this one, which is going to be very easy. But I'm going to make it harder. I'm not going to give you the. And when the broken-hearted people living in the world agree. If I
Oh my God,
line,
that's you can't back up some.
Sure.
All lonely people.
If I do,
in the world agree. No, it's
If I back up, you'll know it, and if I go forward, you'll know it.
Oh, okay. We'll go to another line that I.
Okay, this is gonna probably give it away. For those, for though they may be parted, there is still a chance that they will see.
Oh, Motown. What becomes of the broken-hearted?
See, that's an interesting take. That's what came out in your mind. I think Jim caught it.
What?
Let It Be.
Was it really?
Yeah. Well, don't be.
They may be haunted. There is. Yeah. Okay. I got it. Okay. But you got to admit, it does fit the other tune too.
Oh yeah, totally. That's why I was saying, I was like, well, hell.
God, I used to think I was good at this.
Well, I kind of made it a little bit difficult by singing that first bit.
Yeah.
Let me see here.
Oh, this is actually fun. This is good.
You ready for this one?
Sure. Hit me.
And everybody can play. I'd rather laugh with the sinners than cry with the saints.
I'd rather laugh with the sinners than cry with the saints. Not ringing any bells.
The sinners are much more fun. I'd rather laugh with the sinners than cry with the saints. The sinners are much more fun. Just screwed it up for you again.
Nope.
No, let me make it harder. I'd rather laugh with the sinners.
It sounds like Toby Keith.
Because once somebody tries to help in that fashion, you're bound to go crazy.
What era are we looking at?
1980s.
Okay, see, now by that time I had checked out and I was into blues and
But you're gonna know this song because it's that famous. And Jim hit us with it.
oh, he did. Okay, Only the Good Die Young, Billy Joel. See, I was not listening to Billy Joel back then.
Wait, you know that song though, yeah?
Yeah, but I don't know the lyrics to it. I mean, if it comes on the radio, I can tap my toe to it and I don't change the channel, but I don't,
Oh, okay. Let me see. Let's do one more.
Okay.
We could have like a show that does this and see.
Yeah, we could
participate. Well, how about this? What do you guys think about us doing some sort of show like this? But we would prefer that you give us your thoughts over on our, because see, that would also, I don't want to give it away because it's a secret, but go over to our Trampled page on Facebook and just drop us, if you think that in fact, we could do a poll. We'll do a poll or something like that, make it different and see what people, opinions are. I'll hit you with one more.
Okay.
You're gonna totally get this one. Okay, let's do a happy-go-lucky. You can totally get this one.
Okay.
But I'm gonna make it difficult by singing and changing up the way it's supposed to go because you'll get it so easy. It's not even fair.
Okay.
You let me know if you want me to try that or not. It's abusive. It's abusive.
Hit me with it and see what happens. I'm 0 for 4 so far. No, I got 1, believe it or not. Yeah.
Well, but I mean, in all fairness, I totally made it impossible for you by doing what I did. I'm gonna do this one. You're gonna get, but I'm gonna try to convolute it.
Okay, convolute it.
There must be some kind of way out of here, said the Joker to
the thief. You always go back to, see now which one, because it could be Jimi Hendrix or it could be Dylan.
It was the Dylan one.
Oh, okay, all along the Watchtower.
But you see that there's no way that to hide that one. It's gonna happen,
right?
There, because that series of words is not
But then again, if you just didn't listen to the music, you wouldn't know. Because I could throw off some, Mark Knopfler lyrics.
Oh.
That were absolutely fantastic, and you wouldn't know it. I mean, I sent you a link to a Mark Knopfler tune called "What It Is," and I don't think you ever listened to it, and I think you would fall in love with it.
No, I did listen to it. And I closed my eyes, and I saw this bandana and a guitar going through it like a halo.
Did you see when he was inducted into the Hall of Fame while you were at it?
I used to have not that I used to have, but just because you said that, I'll tell you this one thing, and I guess we'll lead out with this, unless you have something else, to add. But a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, we'd be sitting around. It was during work, and we'd get into music conversations, and he was a total Beatles fan. And one day he said, "Yeah, and the Rolling Stones," and I told him. And he knew I was a musician and played and this and that. And I told him, dude, the Rolling Stones this, the Rolling Stones that, no good. I don't like it. I mean, it's okay, the music, but every time I see Mick Jagger, because this has been going on for decades now, my issue with his quacking around, I can't get over that. It just doesn't work for me. I can't take him serious with some sort of love affair in a song. And be convinced that he's quacking around telling his lady, I gotta have you. It's just I can't do it. But in any event, my friend says to me, well, I mean, you haven't had a what is it? Instead of a gold, what is it? A gold record? He said you don't even have a wooden record. For your music. And
2 minutes in the penalty box.
right. And I get that. Like, that's not my contention, because it sounds almost like it's a jealousy thing. It's not like I stay up at night saying, darn this guy. It's more like,
I'm with you. I thought, and I still think David Bowie was one of the weirdest people I had ever seen, but you can't take the talent away from the guy. I mean, you don't like the Rolling Stones. Okay, fine. A lot of people, millions of people worldwide don't like the Rolling Stones, but you can't listen to a song like Sympathy for the Devil or Gimme Shelter and not go, that's a kick-ass song. Forget about all the preconceived notions. I mean, you can't sit there and I know you have a thing with Ted Nugent too, but you can't, but you can't listen to a tune like Stranglehold and go, that's not a kick-ass tune, because it just simply is,
Look, I'll tell you what, with Sympathy for the Devil, they came out with, because they had recorded that video-wise because they were going to make a documentary, and I guess they did, but it was like just disconjoint. It was basically the kind of stuff that I enjoy because it's just full-on studio banter and prepping for the song and recording a segment and cutting it. I kind of like that more, or the same, if not more, than concerts like filmed. Because I like that back, information and stuff. Yeah. And I was totally okay with that. I love the process and the whole thing. And he wasn't like jerking around.
Well, he does that on stage because that is, the difference. Your stage persona was different than you just sitting in your living room with the guitar.
Yes. So, Mark. Okay, look, just
well, look, they came out and called themselves the greatest rock and roll band of all times, and you and I both know that that's just not true. That was who they were. That was their stage persona.
No, but dude, okay. I just want to ask you this question. Because I want you to then help me, and I doubt that you're going to succeed. I doubt that you're going to help me succeed in overcoming this with the question I'm about to ask you. In all fairness,
okay.
For him, for Mick Jagger, and for for what is he trying to tell us by doing this?
He's flamboyant. That's what it was. That was part of the counterculture. Because when you look back, look back at old rock and roll before that. Look back at Bill Haley and the Comets. Watch the video from the Ed Sullivan Show. Look back at even Chuck Berry. When Chuck Berry was duck walking, that was weird.
Yeah, but no,
that was wild. That was crazy.
But that's fine.
And look at, so look at that, and they were trying to be everything that those guys weren't. Dude, they were the anti-Beatles.
Dude, he was jerking around in.
I know that
Elvis was doing the cool. Elvis looked cool.
Yes, he wasn't trying to be cool.
Chuck Berry looked cool.
He wasn't trying to be cool. He was trying to be outrageous.
But he's still doing it at like 89.
That's who he is now.
It's ridiculous.
If he didn't do it, people would think there was something wrong.
Okay,
that's part of what people go to Rolling. Okay, let me throw another one at you that you do like. Do you think AC/DC in concert would be as fun to watch if Angus Young stood back and didn't do half of the stuff he does on guitar? If he wasn't running back and forth on the stage and stomping his feet and jumping up and down and taking his shirt off and running down the stage and running back, would an AC/DC concert be as energetic and as much fun if Angus Young just stood back and played guitar?
Now, I love how if this were a courtroom, you added fun, energetic, and all these things. Okay, look.
Yeah.
I'll just say this. Since you're doing you're like a preponderance of evidence here, I'll just say this: that his way of rocking it, which by the way he does the Chuck Berry as well, is cool. But this is not cool, dude. It's not. I mean, is it?
I agree with you. I can't watch him either, but I can separate that when I'm listening to it.
Oh, I got you. Okay. Because
I agree with you. I don't like to watch him either.
I don't know any guy rocker. I mean, not that I don't know any, but that would look at that head jerking and say something to the effect of, "Man, that's badass, man." I don't know anybody that would say now.
It's outrageousness.
See, I would not use that word to define what. To me, I look at it, and I don't want to even say the word that I'm thinking. But
I know exactly what you're thinking. And I partially would agree with you on one level, but on another level, I wouldn't agree with you in that they were trying to be everything that the Beatles weren't. They were trying to be the anti-Beatles. And if you go back and you look at some of the attitudes of the day, even though the Beatles had the long hair, and at first, I mean, parents were just absolutely apoplectic that some kid of theirs would want to have their hair that long. They were just, they were called mop tops because good boys don't have their hair cut like that. But by the time the Stones came along, it was a little bit more accepted, and the Beatles were seen as clean cut, respectful, nice boys. The Rolling Stones came along, and the attitude of the day was they're dirty. They are dirty, especially when the song Let's Spend the Night Together came out. When they went on the Ed Sullivan Show to do that and get exposed to a nationwide U.S. audience, Sullivan made them change the lyrics of their song to Let's Spend Some Time Together. And Jagger went all out. Every time he said that line of the chorus, he looked straight into the camera and rolled his eyes as a up yours to Ed Sullivan and the censors, the prudish U.S. audience. So it was attempting to be everything that the Beatles weren't, but still cash in and ride their coattails a little bit,
I mean, listen, I get that, but there's no amount of plaster. No, I'm sorry.
Nope.
Let's say that there's no amount of clay and hay, like the video that you linked to me that I watched the other, that is going to fix and repair that wall. There's no amount of it.
Just, okay, put on Gimme Shelter and listen to Mary Clayton. Don't listen to Mick Jagger. Just listen to Mary Clayton.
And also,
to me, she makes that song.
And also a guy that's very closely associated with performance style to Mick Jagger is Steve Tyler.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the lips and certain things. But you can even argue that, man, he's so flamboyant. But Steven Tyler is a badass. It's cool.
He's actually pretty tame as compared to a few other people. He just gets into it. Steven Tyler just is into it. He's putting everything he can into the music. I've seen Aerosmith live when they came back. They're done with Mirrors tour. He just put everything he had into the performance, and that was it. How he didn't need oxygen by the end of that performance, I don't know. But he was so into it. It was just, and he looks like, I mean, I do get the Keith Richard jokes, I don't know how Steve Tyler is still upright, because he looks 10 years older than Keith Richard. I'm sorry. There's all there is to it.
I mean,
he looks like 10 miles of bad road. So,
I guess we'll do this. To be continued.
Yeah.
Future episode, because we have things to flesh out yet.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, man, I get riled up with that because I don't understand how people can really say, and I could probably picture girls like thinking, "Oh, that's so adorable. He looks like a chicken dancing around like a colorful."
Again, when the girl wants to go to a Stones concert, the guys go where the girls are.
Right, but I can't honestly, unless they're lying through I can't honestly say, like, let's say you and I are at a Stones concert, and I go like this, I elbow you and say, "Mark, dude, did you see the chicken performance he just did? Dude, it's so, like, I can't, it's just so awesome." I don't see any guy.
You're right. I don't either.
It's ridiculous.
It is to you, but millions of people worldwide love it. And what can you say? But you know what? Keep up the fight, man. But I will have you listening to Mark Knopfler before next before next March.
It'd be cool. It'd be cool if Mark Knopfler, Mick Jagger, and what's this guy's name? Ted Nugent formed a band of their own, and they all dress like clowns, like with
not as far off as you would think. Well, you'd have a hard time getting Knopfler to do it, but Nugent would be like, "Yeah, let's go."
And just do it up, man, do it up, and then they could gyrate, swing from the crowd, and wear bandanas on all the equipment, and just have a freaking colorful bash of excitement and fun.
Oh boy,
film it and call it a day. What do you think, guys? Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for joining us, and Mark, I had fun, so I guess I'll catch you next time, because we're gonna do this again next Tuesday at
9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific, right here on the YouTubes.
All right, have a good one.
Take care, y'all. Have a good one.